620 here, Big 550 KTRS. Hey, we always love to talk books, and we love to talk history books. Historical novels are a great way to tell a great history, better, truthfully, in some ways than a nonfiction book can. And our next guest is here to talk all about her book. She is going to be at the St. Louis County Library tomorrow at 7 p.m. for a book signing and a book reading. The book is called Epitath, and it is the story of the OK Corral. Mary Doria Russell, welcome to Big 550 KTRS here in St. Louis.
Hi, thank you very much for having me.
I hate to ask the question, but I also have to for my own curiosity. It's a historical novel about a historical event.
Yes.
So how do we know? This is more truth than fiction, more fiction than truth?
My girlfriend Kate says it's faction.
Faction.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's nice.
I try never to, I go deep on the research, okay? I go back at least one or two generations on all of the historical figures in each one of the stories that I write. I find that if you stick close to the reality, you're much more likely to understand what really happened.
Uh-huh.
And that's the first two words of this book, to understand what happened in Tombstone.
All right. Why is Tombstone and what happened in Tombstone, Arizona, why is that so important and what happened?
That's an interesting question, and that's what the book tries to answer. 30 seconds of gun violence in an obscure town in southern Arizona 133 years ago. And it moved immediately to the center of what people believed about frontier justice and life in the Old West. It was an enormous political moment in 1881 when it happened. It was as big news as the current officer involved shootings. It was like Tamir Rice or the Brown youngster,
Michael
or
Brown.
Trayvon Martin.
Right.
A little early for me. I'm not quite coffeeed
Sure.
up here yet. So if I stumble on the nouns, you'll understand. It was big news even when it happened, but then it faded, and it became really part of the mythology after 1920, after World War I. 38 million men had died without any reason at all. Nobody could figure out what that war was about. And in the face of that wrenching loss, there was a huge hunger for stories about individual heroism in human-sized dramas. And the prototype for this was Lawrence of Arabia. There was a newspaper man who made a whole career out of selling Lawrence of Arabia. And so other writers were looking for an individual who could be presented in a moment of courage and in a human-sized drama, and Wyatt was right there waiting to be presented in that way.
So Wyatt Earp was the lone man standing.
He was the last guy standing. Literally, he was the last one alive. And so it was much easier to accept his wife Josie's version of the story. She was not there, but she made sure that the facts were pruned and that the story was shaped and that her husband was presented as improbably sober and articulate. And she wanted him to be remembered as a hero. She wanted that authorized biography to present him with the epitaph she believed that he deserved.
So going back to 1881, I remember my Twitter feed on that day. It was going crazy. The joke, obviously.
I was going to say.
But so how did word spread so fast, so quickly, without YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and everything else?
Well, at the time, it was a very similar time to our own in many ways. There were telegraph wires all over the country. The entire previous summer had been spent with daily telegraph bulletins from the doctors of President Garfield, who was dying of an assassin's bullet. And it took him 2.5 months to actually die. And every morning people would go to the post office and to the telegraph office to get the bulletin that day.
Right.
So that had strung the whole country together. And there was, in Tombstone, the reaction was draconian gun laws. And it was only 6 weeks after the president died of his wounds that the gunfight took place. And it was really a misdemeanor arrest. People were carrying guns in town. That was against the city's law. And Virgil Earp was told, go down there and disarm those men. Shouldn't have turned out the way it did, but it did.
Right.
So you spent 46 pages on what happened in 30 seconds.
No, 46 lines.
46 lines.
46 lines.
Oh.
Yeah. The book is what the first 400 pages are all of the pressures, the insults, the fears, the misunderstandings, the individual needs and desires in individual lives. All of this had the effect of an avalanche that just came down at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon on October 26th. And there were national and international elements of the story, and it's in many ways like Homer's Iliad. That is also a story of war, but it's rooted in an individual love story.
Mary Doria Russell, our guest. She'll be at St. Louis County Library tomorrow night for a book signing and a book reading. Mary, why did you get so interested in the fight at the OK Corral?
That's an easy question to answer. 2 words: Val Kilmer.
So you got it.
Like everybody else, I loved the movie Tombstone. I thought that Val Kilmer's portrayal was just charming, and so different from the way that Doc Holliday had been presented. So movies often spark my interest. I will go and read about what I have just seen.
Right.
And I got a biography of Doc Holliday by his great-grandniece, Karen Holliday Tanner, who had access to family papers and memoirs and things that had never been published or revealed before. And I'm actually trained as a biological anthropologist. I used to teach anatomy at the Case Western Reserve University School of Dentistry. And I knew the doc was a dentist. What I did not know was that he was born with a cleft palate and a cleft lip. And that his uncle, John Stiles Holliday, performed the first surgical repair of a cleft palate and a cleft lip in North America. And I was hooked at that point. I was like, wow, that is so not what I expected. And his entire, if you accept what the movies did to him, remember, a lot of Wyatt's guilt has been offloaded onto Doc, because Doc died and he was not there to defend himself.
How did you go about, if Wyatt Earp's history is so skewed and so sugar-coated, how did you figure out the difference between fact and fiction?
3 years of research. I am really careful about stuff like that. I follow everything down.
How far is Tombstone from Phoenix?
From Phoenix, about 2.5, 3 hours. The way I drive, 3 hours.
Yeah. Okay.
It's maybe 70 miles south of Tucson.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Right near the border. It's about 25 miles from the border. That was important, too, because there were American cattle rustling gangs that would go across the border and grab herds and drive them north, and as soon as they got over the border, they were free. And Mexico was threatening to go to war with us over that. People have forgotten that part of the story, but that's also part of my story.
What's the OK Corral? Was that was the horse barn?
It was actually a stable that was nearby, and of course the reason that we call it the gunfight at the OK Corral is that it takes way too long to set the type for a gunfight in the vacant lot behind Camillus Fly's photography studio at the corner of Fremont and First near the OK Corral. Who needs to say that?
Is there any marker? Is there any what's there now? Is there a big gift
shop? There's rebuilt stuff there. Some of Tombstone is still there. You can walk down 4th Street and see what the Earps and Holliday saw as they walked towards what would become the gunfight at the OK Corral. There are some buildings that are still there, but there were 2 catastrophic fires. And the second one destroyed all of the buildings that Camillus Fly's studio and those have been kind of rebuilt, but not exactly accurately. You can get a sense of how compressed the space was. I mean, they were 6 paces from one another when it started, and they would, this is just face to face, literally being able to look into the eyes of the man who was just about to shoot at you.
What's the gift shop like down there? I love gift shops.
I'll tell you what they do have, and this is for women of my age. This is really a big deal. They have the saddle that Kurt Russell used when he played Wyatt Earp.
Okay.
I petted it.
All right, Mary, we've now
Mary's
crossed.
a little freaky.
Mary, we have certainly crossed some type of Rubicon here. I don't know exactly what that is, but
I think we should stop. stop now before it gets worse.
Mary Russell, our guest. Tomorrow night she'll be at the St. Louis County Library, 7 o'clock for a book signing and a book reading. The book is called Epitath, and it's a historical novel about the gunfight at the OK Corral. Mary Doria Russell, thanks for coming in. Have a good trip, and we'll see you here in St. Louis.
Good. Thanks
Take
a lot.
care.
6:30 here, Big 550 KT.